Education's an important part of my life, and for the reason that Hrag's going to say, look, where would you be without your education? You know, you wouldn't be here. And you probably all went to pretty good schools if you're here. But in many parts of the world and many parts of the country, it's just fundamentally unfair what we're putting out there for young people. And it shouldn't matter who your parents are or where you're born. Everybody should have the shot at a good education. And so I serve on the board of Teach for America in Los Angeles, and I'm a big advocate for Teach for America and watch their core members, the teachers' core members, what they do in the classroom. And it's like watching LeBron James play basketball. It's watching Gretzky play hockey. It's watching a great singer. They're artists, the best teachers. And when you meet someone like Hrag and you say, what would compel a 25, 26-year-old with little experience to take on one of the toughest challenges ever, starting a charter school from scratch at 25 or 26. He's done that. He's a graduate of Boston College. He's got his master's. He's currently getting his MBA at a fine business school across town. But I want you to hear this story because, as I said, this is one of the best entrepreneurs I've ever met. Please welcome Hrag Hamalian. Hrag. Welcome. Have a seat. All right. So we're going to, because we've got so much to cover, we're going to go quickly through his background and then talk about Valor Academy. Thanks for coming, man.
Of course.
I am such a fan. Ever since I saw your school, I've never seen such discipline, participation, enthusiasm, rigor, all the things, and it's a direct result of you and your team. So where did you grow up, real quickly?
So I was born abroad, but I grew up in New Jersey, and anybody from the East Coast?
Yeah.
All right. And moved out here subsequently about 10 years ago for teaching.
And how long, did you go to public school or private school?
I went through all public schools. So part of what's really interesting is when I moved here from abroad, my parents actually, I was born in the Middle East. My parents are both, they escaped from the civil war in Lebanon. Both were college educated. When they came here, could not make those degrees translate into jobs, and so they were taking on multiple jobs. They came here on the notion of every child in America gets a great public education. As you all know, that's not necessarily true. They brought over my grandparents because they were working all the time. They brought over my grandparents to take care of my sister and I. Both of them had a first grade education, didn't speak a word of English, so here we were, English language learners, brand new to the country, with our primary resource being individuals with a first grade education and limited English proficiency. And lo and behold, very luckily for them, and very fortunately for myself and my sister, where we landed in New Jersey actually had a great public education system. And so I went K through 12. Pretty ignorant to the fact that I had a really unique situation, that I actually was exposed to incredible teachers, to an incredible system. I just thought that was the status quo. But looking back now, that's obviously not the case for most kids in this country.
And did well in school, graduated, went to Boston College. What did you study?
Very schizophrenic. I was a double major in biology and English. I was pre-med, pre-law, pre-everything you can think of. And so, but interestingly enough, though I had educators in my family growing up, it had not even crossed my mind until senior year. I had a consulting job lined up. I was planning on taking the MCAT, and somebody approached me about Teach for America. And they said, listen, it's a great opportunity for you to give back. It's 2 years. It's kids like you that you'd be teaching, and then you get out of there and continue on with your life. And I was 20, 21 at the time. Sounded like a great idea. Jumped in, and a month later found myself in South Central Los Angeles teaching at Locke High School. So.
Okay, for those who don't know, paint the picture of Locke and a brief history of just how underperforming that school is.
So at the time I was there, which was 2005 to 2007, Locke was probably, my opinion and most people's opinions, probably one of the lowest performing and most violent high schools in the country. Great community, great kids, lot of well-intentioned people in the school, but a very, very broken system. And It's actually at the corner of where the Watts riots originated. Just a lot of history in that community and compounded challenges that by the time I stepped into my role as a 9th grade biology teacher, I was teaching students in the 9th grade who had a 2nd grade reading education, could not do math for the life of them, and in their minds, they thought they were on the path to college. And it was really jolting because for myself, I looked at those kids, there's a lot of similarities between my life path and theirs, and I had been exposed to this amazing public education system, and here I was contributing to one that was setting them up for failure. And so it was incredibly difficult to be in that position and day to day go in and try my best and just realize that, you know, I'm making little significant gains here and there with kids, but overall not setting them on the path for college and a good life opportunity.
And you took leadership roles while you were at Locke, and weren't you, head of the department? I don't remember how big the department was, but you're head of the biology department.
Yeah, it's interesting. My 2nd month of being there, I was the head of the biology department. Literally taught biology for less than a month. Yeah, I mean, what happened was I got super frazzled, and I would walk into work every day and just be like, I can't continue doing this. And so I walked up to the principal one day, again, 22 years old, and I said, listen, I have all these ideas, we can do all these great things, what do you think? And he was so he again, well-intentioned person, had so much going on. He was like, yeah, do whatever you want. And so, took on the head of the biology department, tried my best to kind of do well in that department and get the teachers together. We rounded up about 300 kids, and actually we had the opportunity to start a small school within Locke called the School of Math and Science. And I can't say that, during my 2 years there that building that small school within the school that we made such huge significant changes that it changed everyone's lives. It didn't. But what I realized, and I think what the people that were working with me realized, was just with some significant changes, with some accountability, with some trust and faith in students and parents, we did make some change. Kids started showing up to school. Kids started caring about grades more. Homework rates went up. We had a better standard for dealing with behavior and discipline issues. And it just opened my eyes to the reality that if I could start from scratch, if I could start something just from the bottom, I truly believed at that age that I could start something that would actually change kids' lives and put them on the path to success.
And your efforts at Locke, they were covered in a book. Whose book was it?
It was Donna Foote's. It's called Relentless Pursuit. And if any of you are interested in Teach for America, it covered myself and 3 other teachers in our first year at Locke. And it's not a pretty story. I mean, it was me going in there, being exposed to what I'm telling you I got exposed to. But I think interestingly enough, all 4 of us actually, which I still keep in touch with, we're all involved in education. All 4 of us actually that were covered in that book are currently administrators at schools. And so all of us, started in 2005. We're still in the game.
So you got experience. You saw the problem. You saw the needs.
Yeah.
And you had some ideas for solutions. And probably not experienced enough to know really how daunting it may be.
Yeah.
And so what'd you do?
I started talking to people, and I think Nick was the talk. I just started talking to everybody. I said, I want to start a school, and everyone said, you're insane. You're 22, 23 years old. What do you know about hiring, organizational systems, the unions? Start a school? You just literally taught for 2 years. I want to start a school. And so I looked around, and I looked for opportunities that would take me on and give me the type of training that I would need to start this type of thing. And I actually found the equivalent of an educational incubator, which is for charter schools, which is called Building Excellent Schools. They're based out of Boston. I was the first person they had ever taken under the age of 30. I talked to them and convinced them that I could do this, and I could do it, and I would be successful with it. I just kept pestering them. And I was the first person that they had actually taken out of that short of kind of an educational and work experience background. Most of the people that were in my cohort were lawyers, businessmen. They had some background that set them up better. But at the end of the day, what I convinced myself with, and I told everybody else, was none of you have started a school before, so how far back am I? You might have a business degree, you might have a law degree, but there's a lot that it takes to start a school. And so, again, a lot of overconfidence, which I think you need to build up in yourself and believe in yourself. But that's what gave me the initial skills to understand how to start a charter school, and then I was on my own to get out and make it happen. So.
This is Starting a school is one of the most complex things you could ever try and do. You know, it's not like a dry cleaner. It's not like, you know, a one location. I mean, you have students, you have parents, you have the community, you have this morass of LA Unified School District, which if you're from here, this is the most difficult district in the country to get anything done. So tell us what a charter school is and how that fits into the puzzle.
So to define it very plainly, a charter school is a public school. So we're held to all the same requirements that public schools are. They're tuition free, you can't teach religion in the schools, you got to serve lunch if students qualify for free or reduced lunch. All the qualifications that you, struggling with this thing. Okay. All the qualifications of a regular public school. The difference is you trade freedom for accountability. And what that means is essentially you have more freedoms in terms of your curriculum. In terms of your curriculum, in terms of your schedule, in terms of if you want to do uniforms at the school, if you want to, you have a lot more freedom how you want it. You still have to abide by the state, national standards, the public school standards. However, you have more freedom to establish a curriculum which you believe will best serve the student population that you're serving. You trade that for a higher level of accountability. So most charters in LA through LA Unified are authorized for 5 years. You set metrics and you're expected to reach those metrics within the course of those 5 years. And if you don't, the district has the ability to come and shut you down. Whereas the majority of traditional public schools, as you may know, don't usually get shut down regardless of how terribly they perform. They continue kind of compounding on their challenges, et cetera. And so charter schools have a higher accountability and you get more freedom. It's a trade-off.
And did you have a vision, like a specific, you know, most entrepreneurs have a great vision and a specific vision. Did you have a specific vision for your school, what it was going to look like, feel like, the energy, or did you just say, I just know I can do it better?
I think it was a combination of both. So I actually spent a better half of a year. You shouldn't ever jump into anything without doing your research. I spent a better half of the year going out there. I wasn't going to just reinvent the wheel. There was things that we do that are pretty innovative at Valor, but I spent a better part of the year going and visiting 30 of the top performing charter schools in underprivileged communities and just looking at and talking to and understanding what they do to help support kids. That being said, I wasn't fully satisfied with any of those models that I saw. And at the end of the day, I think my kind of litmus test of whether what I was doing was working was A, would I want to go there if I was a kid? Would I feel supported? Would I feel happy? Do I want to come to school every day? B, would I, as a parent, ever send my child there? Because I'd be the biggest hypocrite in the world if I started a school that I want to put my own kid in. And then C, I wanted to make sure that, you know, in any way that, you know, any level of excellence that I'd been exposed to, whether as a child, as a teacher, whatever else, am I bringing in the type of staff that are going to help support the outcomes that I think we need? And so I kept that in the back of my mind. I walk into school every day, and the day I feel like I wouldn't send my kid there or I wouldn't be happy as a child there, I need to change something or I need to leave this job. So constantly looking to improve and make sure I keep meeting that litmus test.
And how did the opportunity, I'd say present itself, but how did you decide where to locate it and where the school is going to be established?
So I think it's interesting if you guys are interested in entrepreneurship, education and business intersect all the time. And I tell people that all the time and they don't believe me. A lot of people are like, what led to your success, et cetera. I had a goal of serving underprivileged kids, but I looked at it as any other type of opportunity. I needed to go where there was a need. And so in Watts, for instance, is where I initially wanted to put the school. There's a lot of political challenges there, and it was already saturated with charter schools. And so for me to jump into that community, you know, would I have reached the same level of success? I don't know. So I did an overview of the landscape of Los Angeles. I looked for a demographic that was in need. I looked for communities that were open to charter schools, and I looked for other schools that were not performing at the standard that they needed to, because the general idea behind charter schools is you go into a community, you improve that community, and you improve the surrounding school systems as well. And when I did that kind of breakdown around Los Angeles, what I noticed is nobody was in the East San Fernando Valley. Nobody. That's changed after our success and after people have started to realize that that's a place of high need as well. But really I wanted to go somewhere where, you know, the need was there, the community was there that wanted it, and we could come in and make a change.
Can you tell us sort of about the community itself and sort of, you know, what demographics you're serving and income level?
Yeah, so about average of about $30,000 income level in the community. In terms of education rates, less than 20% with a college degree, less than 50% with a high school degree. the majority of the population living in poverty are younger kids around the age of 17 and below. And so, again, a community that needs a change, that needs these opportunities presented to them, and kids that obviously need these opportunities that are presented to them.
So the specific areas are like Panorama City, North Hollywood, Arleta, is that
Exactly.
right there?
Yep.
Okay. So tell us, you locate there. What are your facilities like?
So charter school is one of the things that they don't receive are facilities. And so you have to go out and find your own. And so I did a search, and we actually ended up partnering with a former Baptist church school that was going out of business. They wanted to see a program, again, you can't teach religion in a school, but they wanted to see a program that was founded on respect and that was serving the demographic kids that we were putting out there. So I spent a great deal of time with some church folks, talking to them about my vision and what I wanted to do. Initially, they were skeptical, again, because I was a pretty young guy at the time, and I consider myself old now, but I guess I'm not yet. But we talked to them for a very long time, established a connection, and we've been based the past 5 years out of a building that was built in the 1950s. We've had to do heavy modifications. I now know how to do land use if anybody ever needs me to hire for those purposes, but learned a great deal about that as well. And we've been there for 5 years, and we've made it work. And the aesthetic of the building, we love it. We think it's the most beautiful place in the world. And our kids treat it as such. It's a building from the 1950s that we're in. So.
And tell us about the student population.
So we have about 500 kids at our middle school. We just
School what grades?
5 through 8th. Started the school with just 120 kids in 5th grade and built it year by year, so we had a grade level every year. We actually graduated our first class last year, and we opened up a high school, which I don't know if I've told you that yet. So we now have a high school as well, so our 8th graders matriculated to the 9th. 90% of our kids are free reduced lunch, which means that they qualify for free lunch. They're living in poverty. 85% of our students are Latino, Hispanic descent. The remainder are a mixture of African American, Asian, Armenian, Filipino. And all of our kids, there's this sense sometimes that charter schools cater to kind of a broader population, and they cater to kids that are outside of the community. It's not the case for us. About 99% of our kids come from within a 1 mile radius of our school, and the remainder, 1%, come from about a 5 mile radius of our school.
And is it easier to describe, or do you have, we have a video of Valor, and I'm wondering whenever you want to introduce that, but I got a chance to visit it. That's how we met. I was visiting a Teach for America school. We had a board meeting there in their cafeteria / meeting space.
Yep.
And you got to see some of your teachers in action, and just thought this, basically went home and just like, I suck at teaching.
Well, I've got a promo video that I think we can play, but I have like a 40-second clip that might actually be better. It's this one. It actually is our kids. So one of the things before you play it, one of the big things for our students is most of our kids are going to be the first that ever attend college in their lives. And so a lot of the schools I visited had, every homeroom they had was named Harvard, USC, UCLA, like all these different schools throughout the country. Great idea, right? But if I'm a kid sitting in New York and you're talking to me about Berkeley, and I've never seen it, and all I see is brochures and pamphlets, it's difficult to make that connection. And so for me, one of the things that I changed about that idea, and I mentioned I saw schools, I took practices and changed them. One of the things that we did is we focused on 4 universities. USC is one of them. UCLA, I know, is the other. LMU and Pepperdine. And again, I just picked 4 universities that I felt were brand names in LA. And we've created strong connections. And so every homeroom, every grade level has one homeroom named after one of those universities. And so this is 5th grade USC, and it's just a quick, they're doing, 40 seconds should be enough. They're just doing their multiples, their math multiples, and rhyming and rhyming about them.
Who do you represent? USC! What do you feel like doing today? I feel like rolling my multiples. 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 Valor! Lions! Good as gold. Let me see your fingers roll. Paws up. Let me hear your 9s. 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 60,
So we teach them how to do their multiples in just fun ways. And so, just one of the practices that we use is that they're obviously really cute. They're fifth graders. And so, yeah, that's just a quick peek into the school.
What I noticed the most is not just the artistry of the teachers, but the command they had over the class. And command it sounds too strong. The level of participation, if I were to ask you, hey, for an answer, 10, 20%. I'm talking 80, 90% of kids in those classrooms are raising their hands to participate. When they broke out into groups, they immediately switched their desks around into this pods of 4. They started talking. The teacher counted them down how long they had. It was like a military drill with good energy. And so I'm wondering, when you set about building a school and a vision for it, what are the 3 or 4 things that you have to have a high-performing school?
I think culture is paramount to everything else. One of the things that people say is, you have this great school, parents have the option to put them there, they can apply to your school, and so you get great kids. And the truth is, that's not really the case. We start in 5th grade, and think of your elementary experience. You graduate elementary school in the 5th grade, right? And that's something that to most kids and parents is really important. So for a kid to leave a school in the 4th grade and come to you in the 5th grade, it's got to be one of a few things. They're struggling in school and they're either debullied, or they are the bully, or there's something happening that they're not performing at their school and having an issue. So we get a medley of kids, and we get kids that are great performing academically that come in, but the majority of our kids have been struggling for some reason at their school. And so the first thing we do with those students is we bring them in. We have about a week where we tell them to forget everything they've ever done. Whether they've been the most amazing person in their last school, or the worst person, or the bully, or the bullied, it's a brand new start. And so we spend a week with them just recalibrating them. And then I've spent a lot of time, I think if somebody wants to talk about best practices and what we do well, like culture is something I've spent a lot of time on. We have some incredible systems that we've devised over the years, but it's really all founded on respect, making sure that we ensure that students come, they feel respected, they respect one another. We have minimum to no disciplinary issues on campus, which is pretty amazing with a 500 student school. So I think that's paramount to everything. Culture is number one. Hiring, I think with any business, is really the most important thing. I have probably the most ridiculous and rigorous hiring process you could possibly imagine. People have pushed me to cut portions of it out because they were borderline crazy. I would take you to Starbucks and sit with you an hour and see how you responded to your surroundings to make sure that you could adapt to change. Just things I had plugged in. I wanted to see people in every light before I bring them in. They have to be incredible educators, but they also have to be good people, and they also have to be great professionals and open to growing. And so hiring, I think, is absolutely, absolutely important. And then I think the last piece of it for us is building a very strong triangle between the student, the school, and the parent. And so we've established a number of systems to ensure that parents are involved in their students' education and that they have access to helping their students at home. And that includes anything from, we've written grants and gotten grants where every one of our 6th graders now gets a computer at home, and parents are trained on how to utilize that, and there's software on those computers that parents can use to tutor their kids at home, to we hold parent sessions and workshops throughout the month to help their children in mathematics, English, etc. So I think that's probably the third most important.
And part of the culture is high expectations and setting them.
Absolutely,
them.
yeah, absolutely.
It's not just, hey, we have a great culture.
Absolutely.
And that may not have been present in the schools from which they came.
Right.
So you started in what year? What year was Valor started?
2009.
2009, and you were how old?
I was 25, I think, when I started the school.
And you're recruiting teachers, not just Teach for America core members. You're recruiting teachers that are older than you. So it's interesting when you go start your tech company or whatever it is, you might be hiring and convincing people on why they should join your team and your crazy dream. Any trouble doing that, convincing why this 25-year-old?
Yeah, I was terrified, to be completely honest, to walk into a room and tell people I'm 25 and I'm starting a school and you should come work for me. But somebody told me something that just resonated with me, and it stuck with me, and I carried it with me. And they said to me, people will treat you the age that you act. And so think of yourself as however you want to think of yourself, and that's how people will see you. And I have to say that I have never walked into a situation with somebody, whether they're 30, 40, 50 years old, and I've asked them to come work for me, and they've treated me any differently because of my age. And that started from when I literally did not have a school. I had a piece of paper that had my mission on it, and that's what I was bringing to people. It's how I carried myself, how I acted. If I believed I was a 25-year-old and acted like a 25-year-old, that's how people would see me. I came in looking like I had been running schools all my life, and this was what I was going to do. Although inside I was secretly crying. It's how you present yourself and how you put yourself out there that people will respond to.
And this is not an overnight thing that you can change the performance of students, the performance of a new school, but you can set the culture in motion. It's sort of analogous to Pete Carroll, sort of taking over an organization that was struggling and how long it takes for you to turn it around. You started from scratch, but you have students that are, they're not, they've got their experiences from the other schools. When you started Valor, sort of the comparable community, the schools are judged by API, Academic Performance Index.
Yep.
And in your area, sort of LAUSD, what was sort of the average scores?
Yeah, so their API's Academic Performance Index, you're judged between 0 and 1,000. Anything above 800 is exemplary. Most of the middle schools in our area at the time were performing in the 600 range, 600 to 650, which is pretty dismal. That's really proficiency rates in English, math. You're looking at proficiency in terms of I understand how to do math or English at my grade level of somewhere between 20 to 30%. And so it's again as an indicator of how those kids will fare as they grow up and go to high school. Again, very limited chance that they're going to make it into a college that's going to set them up for success.
So, shifting forward on performance, LAUSD averages about what these days?
It's depending on what grade level you're looking at, but probably like in the lower 700s.
Lower 700s. California as a whole?
Close to that.
Close to that. Where does Valor perform?
We're at 890, which is very high compared to for most middle schools. Thank you. And yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of that, but honestly, I look at fifth graders that come in and they're making twice, our kids grow 2 years every year that are at our school. And I can talk all day about, what I do and what the teachers do and whatever, but take a 9-year-old and put them through what we ask them to go. We set insane expectations for them. And they come in and they carry themselves and they want it. And so it's all the kids that really push this. We create the structure for them, but they're capable of anything. And so our school is currently ranked, it's the second highest ranked middle school in LAUSD. And it's comparative to, what I'm most proud about is that's not compared to schools that are same demographic, same income level. If you take schools in Beverly Hills and compare them to us, if you take any public middle school in LA, we're the second highest performing based on what our kids have been able to do. So we're really proud of that.
So talent doesn't just reside. Talent and natural ability don't just reside in better zip codes.
No, it's a lot of hard work and it's a lot of grit. I mean, one of the latest theories is grit and perseverance as the primary indicator of success. And I got to say, our kids have more of that than anybody, because I have kids that have challenges in their life that I could not even imagine dealing with as an adult, and they come in every day smiling like there's nothing going on. They focus on their work and they go home and they come back again the next day, and they're going to be the next lawyers, engineers, sitting in your seats. They're going to be great.
Well, speaking of coming in every day, what is a typical attendance rate at the LAUSD, do you know?
It's high 80s, low 90% in terms of percentage of population that comes in every day. It's high 80s to low 90s.
What's your attendance rate?
98%, so almost 100% of our kids come into school every day.
And California Distinguished Award.
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of accolades for it.
What about graduation rates and going to college?
Yeah, so I actually, for a long time, we've been pushed to start a high school. Actually, since 5th grade year, after our first year, people came to me to start a high school. And they said, I don't understand middle school yet. You want me to go start a high school? So we built our middle school, and we built a program within it to ensure that our 8th graders graduated and went to grade schools. We got the equivalent of about 13% or 14% of our graduates into private high schools on full rides or partial to full rides. And so, again, we're talking Harvard, Westlake, Oakwood schools that are going to change these kids' lives. The remainder of our kids, we got into charter schools. And we had that happen very early on in the year. And as I started to look at those schools, charter schools, and some were going to public and magnets, I went and visited them to make sure we were placing the kids I had worked with for 4 years into an education setting I was happy with. And I wasn't. And so literally over 8 months, I decided we're going to open up a high school. And we opened up our own. And we have a 9th grade now that is primarily our 8th grade graduates, and we took some kids from the outside as well, so we could serve the broader community. And so hopefully in 4 years at high school, we'll be putting up the same results. We'll see.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
And speaking of rolling forward, what's your retention rate on teachers? Pretty good?
Almost 100%. We have teachers that leave for professional purposes in terms of, like, we have a teacher that left to come and pursue their PhD at USC. I'm dropping USC every chance I get now. Since
It's working for you.
Yeah. So we have teachers will come and pursue PhDs, et cetera. We have very little negative attrition. I have, and anybody that starts a business, you'll need to do this. You have to let people go sometimes, and I have done that. But in terms of the past 2 years, we had 100%, full 100% return our 3rd year of the school. And this past year, again, we had 100%. We had 2 people leave because they were having children, which is a valid reason to leave work. And it really is. I mean, they're at home, and we're just waiting for them to be able to return back to us. And we had 1 person again leave for PhD purposes.
Well, let's ask a few questions of Hrag, and then Adam will do his thing, and then we'll ask questions of Adam. But why don't I have a couple questions for Hrag? Wow.
Sure. Yes.
Hi, Sam. Can you tell us about your first day opening the school and what you were feeling, what the energy of the school was like?
Yeah. It didn't really hit me, the gravity of what I'd taken on, until the first day of school, because I did this. And if you go online, you can watch our promo video. And for the first 3 years of the school, then my responsibilities kind of spiraled out of control, so I couldn't do it. But every morning, I would stand outside and shake every kid's hand as they came into the school. And so you can see me doing that in the morning. And the first kid showed up, and it was this 5th grader, and they shook my hand, and I looked at them, and I was like, oh, man, I'm responsible for your education now. And so the gravity of what I had just worked the entire time to make that happen, and then I was like, wow, now I really have to make it happen. And so I could, the first year of the school, I wouldn't go home until I'd made sure everything was aligned. And as I became better at doing things, and some of that nervousness and anxiety around making sure everything was perfect simmered down. But the first day was really when I fully realized what I'd taken on and needed to do. So.
Couple more questions.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did some research, and I think why I started with 5th grade was at the time it was a trend. A lot of the schools were starting at the grade level. The primary reason for it is because, to catch kids up in middle school, our kids in 5th grade come to us at a 2nd grade proficiency level. And so we have a limited period of time to catch them up, get them to where they need to be so they graduate ready for high school. And so you have more time. That was one. The other one is, it's insane. If any of you want to work in education, the difference between a 5th grader and a 6th grader in terms of malleability and the desire to listen to anything you say, insane. It's night and day. And so you get 5th graders, you bring them in, you enculturate them, they love the school, and then they don't lose that. And it stays with them the rest of the time they're there. So that's fine. We do. So not in our middle school, but in our high school we teach, the first year we're teaching Spanish because it just makes sense. It's easy for the kids to jump into. We're going to teach French soon. And in our high school we're actually doing a program where we're actually going to partner with a community college. And so kids will be able to start accessing community college courses, and hopefully some of them will graduate with an AA even before they go to college. I don't know who to pick. Yes, sir.
You talked a little bit about finding great teachers and kind of screening teachers and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how do you get the teachers to want to come to you?
Yeah.
Public school, assuming you don't have too many financial options.
Yeah.
How do you get the best teachers to come to you?
That's a great question. Most people do that through marketing outside and putting their things on websites. I show up to your classroom by accident and I'm suddenly there. I know you're a great teacher, and I will show up to observe you, talk to you, and I'll do everything I can to come out. I'm relentless in that, in getting a good teacher. And so that's my strategy. I will just accidentally show up to a great teacher's classroom and talk to them take them out to Starbucks, see how they do. Yes.
Obviously, surrounding charter and public schools have seen your success and the success your school has had. Have they adopted any practices and how does that affect the schools around?
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest, I'm a huge charter proponent. I think one of our biggest failures is charter schools were supposed to come out and change our best practices were supposed to go into district schools. I was really disappointed with the general, the frequency of that happening. And so we do. But David's been to a couple. I think you came to a breakfast. So we do these breakfasts where we invite district leaders and we invite charter school leaders to come in and see our school. And then I do my best to network with them and create opportunities for us to share best practices. So yeah, a lot of what we do is starting to get incorporated in other schools to see the success we have. Yes, sir.
Have you ever encountered difficult or uncooperative parents, and how did you manage to kind of like build a relationship with that or overcome that challenge?
Yeah, it's funny. Yes. I mean, obviously we have difficult parents, but for the most part, parents are so overwhelmingly grateful for the opportunities that the kids have. And it was much more difficult, I think, in the first year because we had something to prove. Now, their child is at our school for 2 months and they're a different person at home. And so it's very hard for a parent to come in and say, this isn't working for us. What are you doing wrong? And usually most of our parents are appreciative, they're grateful. And again, we treat parents with utmost respect because at the end of the day, we can do everything right at the school. And if they're not supporting it at home, there's no way the kid's going to be successful. So, yes. Right. Right. It's a great question. By law, we can't, and I would never. That's not the intention of the school. We want to have the pod that comes to us, and so it's a lottery. We have 120 seats in every grade level. Our entrance point is 5th grade, and then 9th grade in the high school, and so people apply. And then if there's more than 100 applications, we do a public lottery, and we choose from those, and all we can ask for is name and address. We can't even ask for gender, nothing else. So we get no information about the student until they're in. And no, we've focused, even with all of our success, we focused all of our marketing directly into the community and not outside because we don't want to attract other people that just see a good school and want to come. We want to ensure that we serve the community. All the way in the back. Thank you.
I have a friend who's actually working in CFB right now.
Okay.
And she's been telling me about how hard it is for teachers to stay in the school after we got there 2 years working at the school. Just because of how difficult it is to work with the students.
Yep.
And a lot of it's very challenging. So I'm wondering how you could maybe compare
I think it has a lot to do with the school's successful, so teachers see the effort that they put in is translating to success. Our teachers are our most prized possessions. They're like amazing athletes, as David described them. Everyone's coming after them, and so I got to do everything I possibly can to make them want to be at that site. And so we've done anything from ensuring that every year we're changing systems and making sure that they can focus on their practice. I offer them professional growth opportunities every opportunity that I get. I respect them as individuals. I think everybody that works for me, they see me at their level. I'm not over them. I'm not pushing things on them. If they need a day off, I can cover for them. I'm there for them. I think it's a lot of those different things that helps for the retention rate. And I think everybody has a different route in education. I couldn't stay at a school where I described what I was feeling there. I have friends that have been at Locke to this day. They started with me and they're still there. And it's a different type of person set to turn that school around. And that school will turn around. It'll take more years, but I needed to establish something for myself. I wanted to do that. There's others that go to charter schools, to other district schools, to magnet schools that teach in different environments. I think everyone has their own path. And so give them some hope with that. And hopefully they stay in education.
One final question.
That's tough. Colin. Yes?
What do you do with the freedom aspect of being a charter school? Because I've actually got experience seeing that there's not really a regulated system. And does that correlate with the culture you've established so far? And how does that translate to the success of the charter school?
So further question. So in terms of freedoms that we have,
No, just in general, the system itself, I feel like there's just so much freedom and manipulation. Like, how do you keep your employees in check?
Right.
Is that related to like the culture that you're establishing through whatever systems you guys have, like fun games or whatever that may
So in terms of the flexibility that we have, how does that affect our staff, and how do we keep people kind of invested and involved? Yeah, I mean, we have flexibility. We also still have to meet certain guidelines that are in place for us, but you guys are welcome to go check it out. My charter that I wrote is probably the longest business plan you'll ever read in your life. It's about 600 pages. It literally outlines what happens when a child walks into the school to the time they leave. It has full budgets in it. It has every last thing is detailed. So it wasn't one of those things where we walk in and it's like, so it's literally, it was in place the first day we walked in, and everybody that came on staff had to read that document before they even came to us. And so it's something, and again, I don't want to say that that's the case for everybody who starts a charter school, but I was maniacal in ensuring that a vision was in place prior, and we've adapted things and we've changed things. But you're welcome to go on. Any charter that's been written is available to the public. No matter what anybody tells you, you should be able to get it and read it, and mine is out there for you to take a look at and see what the systems and things that we use.
Can you wrap a little bit?
Yeah, I'll be here.
All
Yeah.
right, let's hear it for Hrag.